Alright, everybody, and welcome back to Focus Tree Discussion, where today we will be talking about the United Kingdom, a nation that I really do enjoy playing, depending on the playthrough. So, the United Kingdom tree has a fairly large tree, to be honest. I believe it got an update in Man the Guns along with the United States. I believe it at least got some alt history stuff. I'm not sure, because I've pretty much always had this tree. So I can't really remember what DLC it got updated in. And it's split into a few sections. You got your more industry tree over here, a military tree on this side. Then on your Reinforce the Empire, it's split into three different sections of Fortifying Asia, your Commonwealth Ties, Imperial Federation stuff, and then a Mediterranean defense kind of section. Then you got your Decolonization tree. Then you have over here your Historic tree, an A-history democracy tree, and then your three very old history trees. So I want to work my way from left to right with the industry tree and then work all the way over to the A-history trees. So starting out over here with its more industrial / research kind of focus tree, we have the Cryptologic Bomb, which gives you 10 description speed. I don't know if I've ever really done this focus because I always forget it's here. Because you have to be at war with the German Reich, and Poland's not in a faction with them, so it's pretty much only on historical, and like I just don't really do it because I forget it's here. But maybe I'll start doing it more because it looks like these are actually some good buffs down here that might be more pressing with the new update. So we'll see how that goes. But starting out over here with limited rearmament, we got 4 civilian factories. It's really good for a major power. No complaints here. Air defense, which gets you air experience, and then maximum AA in pretty much all your southern England states. And you only really need a 5% world tension, but you also need to be at war or has done no further appeasement, which if you're doing a democracy playthrough, probably you want to do the no further appeasement path because it's just better than the historic path. So while I don't know if it should be 70 days instead of 35, it's not the worst focus because a lot of AA now to deal with the German fighters to win the Battle of Britain, it can be useful. You got radar, which gets you a radar boost plus 75% to your air, I don't know what you would call it, I guess facilities, because that's just aerodynamics and avionics research speed. It's pretty good. It lets you get radar pretty easily, but I think the UK already starts out with radar. I don't know if that's changed in the last patch. Let's see. They already start out with radar, so I guess you already have that special. Let's see. Requires cavity magnetron. So I guess you actually do need to at least get some special research to get upgraded radar versions. But you do start out with the regular radar, so that might not be as good as it used to be. And the Tizard mission also increased to your fighters and radar and stuff. You also boost with the US, but you have to be at war. Yeah, like a lot of these are tied to war or being in the faction with the US, but also nuclear research. So these aren't terrible, but I just never really do them. They're more specific and niche, but I like that they're an option. Moving over, we got the Shadow Scheme, which gets you 4 military factories and a modifier of wartime industry, which I don't really use, the civilian and military conversion, but it is an option. 4 military factories when you go to war is pretty good. It kind of sucks that you don't get them right away, but that is kind of a balancing thing. It's not so bad. I would prefer, like a lot of other focus trees did something like this, where like you get a lot of mills, but they only take effect when you're at war, than just 1 or 2 mills. Like if it gives you more, but you can't use them early game, honestly, that's kind of an okay thing to do. So I like the concept of this one. Then you got industrial effort, which gets you 2 industry research buffs. Pretty good for early on. You can get early like 39 tech. It's pretty cool. You got your research slot, always good. You got Vickers experimental facilities, which if there are no other experimental facilities in the greater London area, you get a airplane one. That's pretty good, and you get 50% boost to land warfare and avionics. I believe that's a new one, a new focus they just added with this DLC, and it's only 35 days. This is a really good one. I like that they added this. That makes the UK feel very strong. Then over here we have Royal Ordnance Factories, which you have to be at war with the UK and have another country has to be at war with the UK and has 30 factories. Germany has done the remilitarize the Rhineland, 20% world tension, all that stuff, and you get 6 military factories. Very conditional to more of a historic gameplay. You can get there on a history, but it's just a little bit different on how it'll get there. But again, 6 military factories, pretty good. Then we have the BSA company, minus 10% production cost on infantry equipment. While it is pretty late in the tree, it's not, I do like it, cheaper infantry equipment. This is something that they've added for a lot of democracies where you can just produce a lot more equipment because it's more of like a capitalistic economy, so you can produce more equipment. I do like that. I like when they give this because it makes it where you don't need to have as many factories on guns as well to keep up your production. So I do enjoy that. Then we got secret weapons, which gets you special project research speed of 5% plus boost for rocketry and nuclear technology. If you're going for that, it's pretty decent focus. Not going to complain about that. Then we have the motorized army, 1 research bonus for trucks. I don't really care for these kind of focuses because I just feel like 1 for trucks is just very limited, because when you're doing your research, like the UK already does have regular trucks, so it would be directly for mechanized. So I guess it's not so bad on a major, but a lot of minors, like, they need to research this truck and then this, and then they have to produce all kinds of mechanized, and then you have to produce tanks. Like, it's just very hard for a minor. So I guess it's not so bad for a major, but I guess 35, I would prefer it to be 35 days. Then we have the Royal Tank Regiment, 1 boost for armor. Again, kind of weak for a major power. Maybe making these 35 days, because a lot of minors have the same focus, and it's literally the exact same 7 days for 1 buff. So maybe giving these 35 days for the UK to simulate that it's a major power, and they also are the one who like made tanks. So being able to get better tanks would be pretty interesting. I'm not sure how good the British tanks were. I assume they're pretty decent, but I think it would be a little bit better to have a little bit stronger for their tank buffs. Now this is a new focus that I believe was added this DLC. Expand the Secret Intelligence Service, along with the Vickers Experimental Facility, which it gives you a free agency, gives you 5% stability, an operative slot, and bonus to like intel strength and all that. Pretty much just a upgrade of the regular intel, and also boosted operative slot, so very powerful. I'm glad they gave that to the UK. That feels a lot stronger because the UK actually has a faction that'll have a lot of members, so you'll be able to get quite a few spies. So giving a better focus for spies for the UK, I'm glad they did that. And then the final focus of pretty much the industrial tree is the general rearmament, where you need 10% world tension at war, and it has some same restrictions as a lot of others, but you get burst austerity, which gives you minus 15% consumer goods. Very strong, I like, but again, a lot of these are kind of limited. But as the UK, it's not so bad because you can focus on your politics after you do the ones you actually unlock pretty early. Because like 5% world tension, like you only need 1 of the following: 5% world tension at war or has no further appeasement. Same with here, like you just need 10%. Like it's not so hard to get early on in the game. So, and you can get to, like, it's not so bad. I don't mind it too much. Moving over to the Armed Forces tree, we start out with Special Air Service, which gets you a good modifier of Special Forces capacity multiplier of 5% and quicker division training time for Special Forces. It also gets you a Special Forces attack 15% Special Forces cap plus 10 as a political advisor, so that's pretty good. I mean, as the UK, you can be doing very strong Marines or paratroopers or whatever, because this doesn't just affect paratroopers, it can affect Marines, and the UK is going to want to use a lot of Marines to invade, such as into Italy and such, so that's actually a very good focus. You got Airborne Forces Depot, which gets you a branch specialization and 2 reductions for your Special Forces Doctrine. Again, that doesn't just apply to your Airborne, that can be applied to Marines or Mountaineers. Like, just also a very nice focus, like both of these. We got Air Rearmament, which gets you a lot of air bases and 25 air experience. It's not the best focus, but it's not god-awful. We got Bomber Command, gets you boosts for a Strat Bomber, Attack Bomber, and 50% off of Air Doctrine, plus 25 air experience. Again, they haven't updated a lot of these with the new air system, but it's alright. It's still a decent boost. And then you got Fighter Command, which also gives a boost to your air doctrine and fighter models. You got Coastal Command, which gives you naval bomber boost. And you can actually kind of stack these, because like this will give you a boost to a medium and large airframe, I'm pretty sure, and these will give you 2 boosts to small airframes, so that's not so bad. Then you have Air Production Group, which gets you 10% cost off of fighters and carrier fighters. That's really good. As the UK, you got carriers, so carrier fighters are good, and you wanted to win the Battle of Britain, so cheaper fighters always good. And you got a boost for jet aircraft, which gets you 2 jet technology boosts and a breakthrough for aviation. That's pretty good. Can't complain about that. Moving over to the Navy part, you got naval rearmament, 3 dockyards, 50 naval experience. Pretty good. UK already's got a great fleet, and this just boosts onto it. Amphibious warfare, boost a research buff for Marines and transport models. Get you better Marines, get you better transport models to launch more naval invasions. This is pretty much I guess would be like a D-Day prep focus. Pretty good. Can't complain. Chiefs of Staffs Committee, get you 10 experience in all 3 groups. Also get you a Spirit that gets you 10 planning speed, more maximum command increase, and maximum daily command power buff with the new raid system. That's pretty good. Can't complain about that. It's more niche, but I like that this tree is pretty spread out, where it's not super deep in every territory. Like a lot of these, once you get through general rearmament, you have to do 1 or 2 of these one of these focuses, or you might need both. Like this one requires both, but once you get through that, you can pretty much do any of these different focuses. I really do like when trees are like that, where you don't have to do 7 focuses deep and then the final one kind of sucks. We have this one over here is anti-non-contract committees, which boost for naval mine laying and mine sweeping boost. That's a lot more niche, but again, it's not really required to do anything else. So if you're doing mine sweeping, you can do it. It's right there. So that's why I like when they do this kind of stuff, where if you're not doing that specific thing, it's there if you want it, but if not, you don't got to worry about getting through it. Then we have Destroyer Focus, which gets you boost for your destroyers. Convoys, which gets you 10% reduction cost for convoy and light hauls. That's pretty good, because destroyers can be made very cheaply. That's good. You got Anti-Submarine Training School, which gets you destroyer training experience gain of 10% and destroyer combat experience gain of 10%, plus 2 boosts to your convoy defense doctrine. That's pretty good. Can't complain about that. Let you get together, you get quicker destroyers, and you can train them up to be decent pretty quick. That's good. And you got AS Warfare, which gets you a boost for your submarines, and like Battle for the next 2 technologies, anti-submarine warfare technology. That's pretty good. It pretty much makes your destroyer stronger at destroying subs, and the Germans are going to be using subs, so it makes sense while this tree's pretty decent and you want to do it. Over here, Britannia rules the waves. 3 50% boosts for naval doctrine. That's really good. Then you can either do battleship or carrier focus, which just gets you your 2 boosts for carriers or 2 boosts for battleships. Pretty standard choice, but it's not bad. Then expand the repair yards, which gets you 2 more dockyards, pretty good, and also gets you a good spirit that boosts refitting cost, speed, and repair speed. Great. Lets you change out your ships, makes them the top of the cream of the crop. Really like when they do that kind of stuff, because refit, you don't want to refit. Like, this gives you dockyards that you can add to your refitting site and makes it quicker and easier to refit. It's perfect. And then the Vanguard, which gets you the technology of heavy ship haul and gets you a special kind of like big battleship. It's pretty cool. It's really late. You got to be into 1944, but that's kind of a LARP kind of thing. I like that. Like, it's down here if you want to go battleship, but you're probably going to go carrier. So it's probably not going to matter, but it is there if you kind of want to do it. So I don't mind it. Then the final one, you need part of the Reinforce the Empire tree, but I would consider it part of the army tree, is for the Secure the Imperial shipping routes, which is pretty much just your long-range cruisers, which gets you a decrease in cruisers and a boost in cruiser models. Really good. I like making cruisers. I'm not good at Navy, so I just make basic cruisers, and that's what I spam out with, like, shitty destroyers. And hope it works. Moving over to the Reinforce or Revisit Colonial Policy branches. Now, so far, I've not really had too many complaints. This is where I have some complaints and some changes I would like to see because while some of this I like, there's a lot I think definitely needs to be adjusted. So, starting out, you got Reinforce the Empire, which gets you 10% stability. Pretty good. You're almost always going to do this side instead of this side, which we'll talk about, like how bad this side is. So, 10% stability for a focus you're probably going to have to do anyway. Pretty decent. The only thing is you do need to have more than 0 subjects, so you have to sometimes do this focus before you do some of your old history political paths, but as long as you remember that, not so bad. Then we got Service Overseas, which gets you some experience and then some hot acclimatization gain factor. I'm not sure how much that actually affects combat, but it is something you can use in Egypt, I guess. So it's not totally useless. I really wish they'd buff the army experience up to 25 because 5 is just pretty much nothing. You could add like 1 battalion, but that's about it. So I'd like a little buff to that, but nothing minor. Now, Encourage Colonial Elite, 7% research speed. That's a pretty good focus. No complaints here. And then it leads into the Commonwealth Ties Imperial Federation subtree, which I actually kind of like. This, I believe they've come through and changed. Like now, this is 35 days, and it gives your dominions political power and like pretty much all your subjects political power and a boost in opinion, which is good because you need a high opinion, and then you can develop all of these, which you give them all good amount of civilians and naval dockyards. Well, it does take a while. You have to like because then you'll have to do like Indian autonomy to make them a dominion. Then you hold the imperial conference, and then you can imperial federalize. I like this tree, and if you manage to annex all of your puppets, which you can do, if you break out like if you do the fascist tree the way I like to do it, you pop the Civil War, you annex them all, then you can do a really quick imperial federation because you can bypass all these. But even if you don't, these are actually not bad focuses because you get like 3 civs and 2 dockyards in South Africa, 3 civs, 2 dockyards in Canada. You pretty much get that in all your dominions, and then you can core them if you do the Imperial Federation correctly. So I like this tree altogether. Then like British Commonwealth tree, like this is not a bad spirit. I mean, 0.05 daily air experience and 10% extra gain plus experience gain on your wings, and like it's a great focus. I just never do it because I usually bypass all these focuses, but it's not bad. And then if you go and get Lord Halifax in control, you actually don't have to do one of these focuses to get the Imperial Federation, but you can do that so much faster than that. It's worth just doing the extra focus. But overall, I do like the Imperial Federation tree. Now, the parts I don't like under here. The Fortifying East Asia. Now, the first one, Fortify the Empire, it's not a horrible spirit. I mean, 5% land fort and coastal fort construction is not terrible. It's really not good, but you also get a naval dockyard and a civ factory in Singapore and Hong Kong. I believe it's randomized. Pretty much it's over in Asia, so it's going to be in like British Malaya or Hong Kong. But it's not awful. I mean, they aren't your cores, so they're either going to your puppet or non-core state, but still, at least it gives you some factories. So I can't complain about this one. The Burma Road gives a boost over to China to fight Japan, so it's not the worst focus to do because you can actually buff up. You can, like when they're at war, you can buff them up slightly. I would like this to be a little bit better, maybe, or maybe have a decisions where you can buff them a little bit more. But it's not the worst thing. I mean, you get 5% war support. That's something. You don't have very high war support early in the game. You can sanction Japan, which I don't believe it even gives an actual. Yeah, you don't embargo them. You just get bad relations, which you're going to go to war with them eventually. This is a horrible focus. Doesn't really do anything. I mean, trade relations, so maybe they don't trade with you anymore, but still, don't care for this focus. The Singapore strategy. You get 25 naval experience. You give Singapore a building slot, 3 coastal forts, and a province, and then you get a little bit of autonomy reduction in them for 70 days. That's not good. The landward fortifications. You get some more land forts and anti-air, a building slot, and you reduce their autonomy slightly for 70 days. Not good. Peninsular War. More forts, more reduction. Still not good. This is 3 focuses, 210 days for forts and anti-air, and 60 autonomy reduction. you could build the forts and probably get more reduction of their autonomy and get almost all of it done in the same in 210 days. You could probably build all of this and get the same amount, if not more, reduction in autonomy. Cause it takes 210 days. It's horrible. Then we have the Hong Kong coastal forts, building slot naval experience. Again, not good. It's the same focuses, basically. Again, it's horrible. 70-day focuses for forts. This one at least gives you some anti-air, because that's not as bad. And like, you do get buildings, but like, this is horrible. This takes so long. This is 420 days. That is awful. And what do you get when you get to the bottom after having to do these 6 focuses? Also, sanction Japan. This is 7 horrible focuses I never want to do. What do you get at the bottom? Influence China. Gets them military faction. 2 military factories. It gives them some democratic influence. That's not horrible. I actually don't mind that as a focus. Because if you're on like A history, they can actually do the executive yuan and get democracy support and eventually flip democratic. So, and then you give them more military factors. Like, that's not terrible, but like, it's beyond 7 horrible focuses. This should be like here. If this was like after Burma Road, I consider it a good focus. But no, you need to get all the way down here. I'm not sure if you need to do all of these to get to it, or just this section. But it doesn't matter if it's only 210 or if you need to do everyone. It doesn't matter. It's horrible. And then over here, you get war with Japan. I hate to break it to you, Japan's going to declare war on you anyway, and probably faster than you. You getting all the way down to the war goal, because you need to do all of these. You need to do, what's this, 8 focuses? You need to do 8 focuses with one of them being okay. That's horrible. I understand, like, Japan's going to declare war on you, so you don't need to go down and get this war goal ever. But, like, it's supposed to be, like, if you want to preempt into Japan, you can't do that, because, like, you can't preempt into Japan because this is just horrible to get to. I hate it. This needs total rework. Like, even making these all 35 days, I don't think will save this. That will half the time, but still, that would still leave you with 4 terrible focuses and 1 okay focus. Like, these are 2 okay focuses. They're not. I don't care for them. Like, it's just, I can't. I hate it. Everything about this is terrible. Same issue over here with the Mediterranean Bastion. You get boost to your construction, not really caring. You get some forts in Alexandria, that's not so bad, and some boost into that state. So, like, that can help out a little bit with the North Africa campaign, but still not that great. Then this is, you can coerce Spain or fortify the Rock. Again, 70 days for forts, or 70 days for democratic influence, both of which don't care for. Like, you're not really going to flip Spain, do you? I mean, you could, theoretically, but I don't care to do it. Protect the Suez, more forts, 70 days, yay. Fortify Malta, more forts in anti-air, yay, 70 days, I love that. Of course, Turkey or Greece. Now, this actually isn't so bad, because the problem is, though, is that Turkey's pretty much hard-coded to join the Allies really late, and Greece is going to join you when you go to war with, when they go to war with Italy, so that's kind of not really useful. Like, Turkey's not going to flip and join you really early, so what's it matter? The Balkan strategy, which gives you, this actually is interesting, it gives 2 off-map factories to pretty much all of the Balkan nations. Problem is, most of the Balkan nations you're going to be at war with, or are going to die instantly. Like, the only one who I would care about is Greece, because Greece can hold out. They're so mountainous, and they don't have, like, they can hold the line, you can support them, so, like, giving them 2 military factories is pretty good. But, like, Yugoslavia, Croatia pops out of them, and then they're surrounded by Romania and Bulgaria and Italy and everyone. Like, who cares about Yugoslavia? Romania is going to be an enemy. Like, so's Bulgaria, so's Hungary. Like, well, I don't know if Hungary and Bulgaria get anything, but, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it really isn't that good of a focus, because it's not helping who you need to help out enough for me to want to go down and do all this stupid stuff. Then you get a sanction Italy. I mean, again, who cares? And then war with Italy. Again, who cares? It's the same problem with the Japan tree. You're already going to go to war with these guys on historical, and if you're going if you're going like as any of the alternate ideology paths, you don't need these war goals. But if you do need them for like democracy, like if you're playing a history but like with that historical AI off, but you're still going democratic, so like no one's going to war with you, these are just horrible to get to, and there's like no reason to do them. They're just dead trees. These need to be just shortened massively. Like they have 14-day focuses in like the German tree, so maybe make these straight up 14-day focuses. That might give it some redeeming qualities, because that would be a lot of forts you could get really quickly. But even then, I don't know if I'd ever do it, because again, war with Italy, war with Japan, at least give us like those 10% attack and defense buffs to these, bare minimum. Because then at least if I somehow get down here when I'm bored, I could use that. But like, even then, I don't think I'd ever do it. Or maybe make these, the coercions, a bit more dynamic. They give you decisions, and maybe like being able to force them into union, like trade unions and stuff, to like make them more on your side. I don't know. Like, there's realistically no reason I'd ever want to do these. But while I complain about these, there's over here, it's even worse. Somehow, the revisit colonial policy, which is pretty much the communist route, where it gives you some political power, some communism, -5% stability. Because if you don't decolonize within 2 years of going communist, you break out into a civil war. The problem with that is, though, I would rather break out into the civil war than do this tree, because all it does is release everybody and lag the game and take a bajillion years. Every single one of these is 70 days, and all it does is pretty much release everybody as dominions for a while. Then eventually, when you hit decolonization, they break free. Like, oh, you get some manpower, you get some political power. Who cares? Like, it is a lot of political power. That's cool. Oh, this one's 35 days. That's cool. 35. Oh, maybe they've changed some of these to be 35 days. It still sucks. Even if all of them are 35 days, which, no, these are all 70. That's 70, but that's optional. 70, like, it doesn't matter. These are all, like, you get a lot of manpower. Cool. You know what else gets you a lot of manpower? Holding the colonies with high compliance that you do as a democratic power. A lot of political power. Cool. You're the United Kingdom. You don't have a lot of decisions that require a lot of political power. By the time you're getting through all these, you're fine. Like, and the problem is that we'll talk about later. The communist tree has no redeeming factors that make you even consider this. That's the biggest problem, is that the communist tree is, I would argue, the worst tree of all of them, which is funny because it has the worst extra thing you have to do on it that you would never do by itself. So it's a double whammy. Alright, finally moving on to the political branch. We'll start out with the steady as she go branches, then we'll move on to the changing course. So we'll start out with the historical tree, which I believe is home defense. Actually, I'm fairly certain it is. And home defense, it's a historic tree for Britain. It's not going to be the best, so I'll try to keep some of the complaints to a minimum, because they could make it a lot better, but that's usually what like the A history is for. Like the A history democracies are going to fix all the issues of that usually. So starting out, more forts, and you get a decision to defend the homeland in case of invasion, which is, I believe, that's new because with the sea lion and AI behavior change. So again, I don't care for forts for 70 days. I mean, the war sport's alright, but that's about it. Moving over, we have issue gas max, which you need one of the following. You need more than 20% world tension or at war. Not terrible, not terrible. And you get 10% stability, 5% war support. Not horrible. It's an okay focus, but again, nothing to write home about. The Military Training Act gets rid of the war to remove all wars. Probably should have talked about the focuses earlier, but there's not many. You got London Naval Treaty, which is just restriction on how big of ships. British Stoicism, which pretty much you can create factions, a little bit of drift defense. War to end all wars, which you can get rid of right here, so not even that big a deal. And then you got King George V, which then flips over to the King Edward VII, who is like takes away stability, and then eventually you can have him abdicate, and then you get King George the Sixth or whatever, which is like 5% stability or something. So like pretty much not much to that. It doesn't have a lot of spirits to deal with. Moving back over the tree, then you got Embargo Germany, which actually does embargo them. That's at least better than the sanctions over here that do nothing. I mean, it's not really that big a deal. Like, because Germany's going to declare war on Poland in 39, and you're going to join the war if you guarantee them, so realistically, not a good focus. Same with Germany. Like, you can get a puppet war goal on them, which is at least something. Like, if you're playing historical and, like, Germany goes A history, you can still get a war goal on them if they're in an offensive war. Like, or if they committed 30% world tension, which, so I mean, it's something. I mean, I wouldn't care for these kind of irrelevant focuses most of the time, but they're at least something. Then we have Prepare for the Inevitable, which gives 5% factory output, 10% mill construction speed. Not bad at all. Then we'll skip over these Benelux Scandinavian interventions for a minute. Then we have Secure Iraq, war goal on Iraq if they have enough party popularity for a different party. More situational, but I think usually Iraq has that happen, and with the new DLC coming out next year, we should actually have more use for this focus, hopefully. Same with Secure Iran, same deal. These focuses will probably be more useful with them having content in a focus tree, but we'll have to see. Then you have Embargo the Soviet Union and Operation Unthinkable. This is a shared thing, so so this also applies to global defense, but this is something like usually you don't embargo the Soviets and go to war with them, so having focuses that let you do that for Operation Unthinkable after you defeat Germany, I like that this is here, because this is something that's not useless like with a war going on Italy, Japan, or Germany, because Soviets aren't going to declare war on you unless you declare on them or do something specific that gets you to war with them. I mean, sometimes the AI will do stupid shit, but if you're playing relatively historical, being able to get a war goal on the Soviet Union after you defeat Germany, I think is actually pretty cool. So I like that they added this little tidbit here. Moving over, we have the Scandinavian intervention and the Benelux intervention, which pretty much requires one of the Scandinavian or one of the Benelux nations, well, not Luxembourg, but the other two, Belgium and Netherlands, to have 15% support for either their fascist party or their communist party, I believe. Same over here with Scandinavia, where 10% for their fascist, 10% for their communist. Interesting that you have different requirements for either of these. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is what it is. And then if one of them is going A history or they're getting boosted or whatever, eventually you can get a intervention war goal on them if they have more than 20% for one of the other parties on either of these, which gets you a puppet war goal. And add continuation of politics. I'm not sure what that does specifically, but it might just be a modifier that keeps them democratic after you puppet them or something. This is kind of all right. The problem is that like these are 70 days. I don't really like that. They should be 35 because they're already super limited. This one with the new DLC actually might be possible because Belgium starts out with 11% and it has somewhere around here. Here it is. Corruption that gives daily fascism boost. So they might actually get over the 15% hump. And they might actually get over the 20% hump to be able to do this. Now, will they do that early enough so you could go and do that? I'm not sure. And even puppeting, like this is your democracy in this focus tree. You can't really make puppets normally. You can over on this tree because of no further appeasements game modifying rules, but so you pretty much annex it, then release it as a puppet. But it is something that maybe you can use this one. The other ones I'm pretty sure you can't really use because I don't think any of them have nearly high enough of other parties. Like I think it's only for these three as well. I mean, I don't think any of these will grow massively. They might, I'm not sure, but I don't think they're really that useful. They're very limiting. Like, and if you're playing with historical focuses off, you'd probably want to do global defense anyway. So it kind of makes all of these kind of useless, which is kind of sad because it is kind of cool. But you can't really use them. It's just unfortunate. Moving over to the global defense, it also starts out with more bases and more forts and stuff. I really do not care for 7-day focuses for that kind of stuff. At least this one gives quite a bit, but it's in Nova Scotia, Malta, Gibraltar, and Singapore. Like, it is global defense, so you're buffing up all these strategic locations, but 70 days? Then you have every man will do his duty, which gets rid of the war to end all wars. I believe even earlier, because you're only 2 focuses down instead of 3. But you do lose 10% stability, which kind of sucks. And you have most show no confidence, which gets you even more 10% stability loss. But you can get Churchill in early, which gets rid of Chamberlain and lets you... It's pretty much the path where you don't leave the Czechs to their fate, and you just gang rape Germany, which is interesting. Then we have no further appeasement. I really like the no further appeasement because while it does take away 10% stability, as you can see, it changes 3 different game rules. You can declare war on countries with the same ideology group, you can puppet countries, and you can send volunteer forces. It also gives you a general war goal attention limit minus 65%, which as a democracy means you can actually declare wars. And then actually lets you send volunteer limit. Like, it lets you actually interact with the world as a democracy, which I think makes sense as like a global great power empire kind of country where like they were a colonial power, as we all know, you can see. So like it would make sense that they can actually interact with the world and not be completely hamstringed by the game rules. I like when they do this with these kind of things where like they change the game rules for a certain path, but it stays a certain ideology. I'd like to do that. I'd like them to do that more with like monarchist nations, where like they'd let you justify war goals at 20% world tension and stuff like that. So I really do like this focus. Then we have kickstart the war industry, 4 military factories. Never going to complain about that. Secure the oil imports, which gets you a war goal in Iraq and Iran, which is much better than having to do 2 focuses and have to have them have a certain amount of ideology. So already way better. But it also gets you a conquer war goal against the Netherlands and a claim on multiple different states, which is pretty cool. Kyrgyzstan is in Iraq, not Iraq, is in Iran. Morocco and Suriname are Dutch islands. I'm not sure where the other ones are, but that's really good. Early game, you can get a war goal in the Netherlands, take the Dutch East Indies, you can get Iran and Iraq. Like, I love this focus. Then you have your Soviet Union that you share with the home defense. Again, I like that. And then you have maintaining imperial integrity or maintaining a balance of power. Now, maintaining a balance of power gets you some land doctrines, not terrible. Gets you some opinion of like the great power of other like democratic nations, pretty good. And then you have continental intervention. Gives war goals against major European nations that have caused more than 10% world tension. So you can get a war goal on Italy and Germany pretty easily, and the Soviet Union, which kind of makes this inert. But you could do that. But it is still pretty nice. And if a history of like Sweden becomes a major and they go like a different ideology and they become a major, you can get a war goal. I like how it has war goals against major European nations instead of just like Germany, Italy, because if you're playing a history, this could actually affect more than just Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union, and France. It's like, I enjoy this. Then you have maintaining imperial integrity, which gets you naval doctrine boosts, but also and gives you a spirit that slowly integrates your puppets. They get daily atomic progress of minus 0.05. Of 0.5, not 0.05. Which is really good. It lets you integrate your puppets, which works really well with the Imperial Federation because you actually need to have them a certain degree integrated. So doing this path, if you're doing a democracy, Imperial Federation is very powerful. Then you have enforce naval treaties decisions, which if other nations have too many capital ships compared to us, you can demand they reduce their number or get a war goal against them, which you can cheese by deleting a lot of your navy. It's a pretty fun strat to get a lot of war goals early on. So I quite like this. Like, it's a choice. Like, yeah, enforcing the treaties is kind of a memey path because you can cheese it, and then you can also use it to get an Imperial Federation period. and then or continental invention kind of depends on a history and stuff. But I like it. It's not so bad. I would like these to be a little bit more flushed out because they are kind of short. But for what they have, I actually really like the global defense. I think the home defense needs a lot of rework because realistically, it has 3 focuses you can reliably do, and then the other 2 you might be able to do secure Iraq because I think they're coded to actually do get that actual support so you can actually do that. But again, it might change with the new DLC, but realistically, almost everything this path has is kind of locked out, and it depends on what others do, not what you do, which I'm not always the biggest fan of. It's all right with like this kind of stuff because it's not the whole main focus of this path. You can, because if this focus didn't exist, these wouldn't be as good. But because this exists, this gets you stuff to do. Like, it's very like it also gets you a claim. I think actually some of this is on like a claim on Venezuela, so you might be able to justify a war going to Venezuela with a claim to get that early on. But like it actually has stuff you can do specifically, whereas this one you're kind of more passive, which I get that the UK was kind of more appeasement and passive at the time period, but it feels like they could do a lot more with this. With the global defense, I feel they could just add a little bit here and there, like just a couple focuses probably would finish it up. But otherwise, I really don't know if it needs much because with this, you're going to want to focus more on developing your colonies. So like, it pretty much means that this is going to be added into it because you're probably always going to want to imperial federalize with this path just because this, unless you're a history and you want to do the continental intervention stuff. But I do enjoy how they made this one. I just wish they'd add a little bit more because it feels a little short. Alright, and now we're finally at the alternate history, different ideology paths. We'll start moving left to right with the King's Party, then the black shirts, then the concessions for the trade unions. As I will have more to say about this than any other path. So starting over with the King's Path. Now the King's Path and the black shirts share this common tree down here, so we'll talk about that in a minute, because it's shared, so it doesn't give a boost to either focus tree unless there's something specific. So we'll start over with the unique focuses. So with the King's Party, you can change the rule where you can send volunteers. You also get a very nice nice spirit, the King's Party, which gives some pretty nice buffs of political power and minus tension limits for stuff and boost for non-aligned. And it changes you to the non-aligned party, which puts Edward it's Edward the 8th and not the 7th into power, which gives but he has a horrible spirit that while you get good justified war goal time, you get minus 30% political power, so the King's Party offsets half of that. You also get Churchill, Mosley, and David Lloyd George as advisors, with David Lloyd George being a pretty decent one for 15% political power. Mosley is pretty good for minus consumer goods, 15%, and 5 stability. And Churchill is pretty decent if you're at war because he has the modifiers for weekly war support and such, and then your boost for non-aligned. So I believe you can actually change Edward to be a better monarch. So while it is kind of it's not the greatest up front, it can be made better. Then you move down to reassess colonial commitments, which pretty much gets rid of your war to end all wars and gets you 5% war support, but you get a horrible modifier with all of like the democratic nations and like the historic ally nations, except for Germany, will hate you. Then you get an interesting focus of isolate the Mediterranean threat, which pretty much stops Germany from allying with Italy because you want to deal with Italy. So it's pretty much then you have either treaty with Germany or a non-interference Germany, which pretty much means I believe this gets you like a non-aggression pact, kind of like splits Europe, where like Germany doesn't involve itself with you, you don't involve yourself with Germany, or you can get an alliance with Germany. Now it does give a horrible stability detriment if you have high democracy support, so you might want to hire Winston Churchill early to get your democracy down, or raids or whatever before you do this focus, or you can just take the stability hit. It shouldn't be so bad once you flip ideologies though, so it's not terrible. And I mean you get a alliance with Germany, which is pretty powerful. Then you get a war goal on Italy, pretty good. And then I believe this is, yeah, this is part of the joint tree, so we'll discuss this all together right now. Well, we'll discuss this in a second, because the whole reason this is an interesting path, because you get your alliance with Germany and you fight Italy. The problem is that it takes a while to go, because you have to wait for all the events that with the abdication crisis, which gives you like forcing him to King Edward to become the king and marry Wallace and not have all of that stuff go crazy and stuff. It really hurts your stability and takes a while to push through all the events. So it's a much slower path. And while it is quite fun, the problem is that, as we'll discuss over here, all of this is most of the interesting stuff, and it's shared with the fascist path, which I just enjoy more, so I just don't really do this path as much. So maybe giving it something that would make it stand out a little bit more would be interesting. I mean, it does have some fun things, and it's cool for LARP, but as I said, I really just prefer this path. So we'll discuss the shared part with God Save the King, 10% war support, 5% stability, not terrible. And then you have the part where this is just so much better as the fascist path, because you have the appeal for the because when you do this, all your dominions break away. Like doing a change in course will, and once you get enough like lower democracy support, once you pick one of these 3 focuses, they're going to break away from you. And the interesting is, like, you can appeal to, like, you can cause civil wars in your dominions to then support those the imperial versions to help you get control of a more like friendly government, and then bring them back into the fold. Like, you ally them, so then you can bring them back, and then you have your Cylon forward operating base, which gives infrastructure, air base stuff. I hate when these are 70-day focuses, by the way, because while that's not terrible, 3 infrastructure, 5 air base, 5 naval base, that's pretty decent. 70 days just really hurts for that. And then you have Reclaiming the Crown Jewel, which gets you claims on pretty much all of India, and then a war goal on the Raj. I also believe it gets you a war goal on like Pakistan and Bangladesh if they break free. Then you get a war goal on the British Isles, which gets you a claim on all 3 states, and then a war goal on them. And you get Unite the Anglosphere, which I believe once you have consolidated the British Isles, it will give you a core on that too. A core on all of Ireland. It also gets you a war goal on the United States. Then you have Preempt the Strategic Threat, war goal on Japan, pretty good. Sign other sets, a good boost to your Navy, good for fighting with Japan. Imperial Conscription, 10% non-core manpower, pretty good. Also lowers all your autonomy for all of your subjects, which is pretty good because you'll have them. I believe when you ally with them, they become puppets. So like being able to do the Imperial Federation with them, that helps out a lot. Over here, and then you get your Preempt the ideological threat of war goal in the Soviet Union, and Expose the Belly, which pretty much demands Iran and Afghanistan become puppets. So it's all pretty good. The reason I say I don't care for it for the King's Party compared to the Black Shirts is, with the Black Shirts, we'll start discussing into them too. They give you on-map decisions to rally support, which boosts your ideology and lowers your stability. And if your stability gets too low, it'll cause a civil war. So you're supposed to slowly gain the support and then flip. But the interesting thing is, once By Blood Alone came out, they changed how civil wars work, where it actually gets you to a peace deal. As a result, when you do that, you go into the civil war, you get close to capitulating the other United Kingdom, you can declare war on all of the dominions in UK's puppets, because they all stay with the United Kingdom, not with you. And if you declare war on them, they're all part of the Allies, you capitulate the United Kingdom, you get to annex all of them. And when you do that, this focus bypasses, and this focus will bypass. That's 210 days that bypass. That's a lot of time saved. And it's pretty easy. And then also you don't have to slowly integrate. And then it also, as a result, bypasses all of this. And down to, like, you can Imperial Federalization without having to develop any of the colonies, reduce autonomy. It's amazing. So, like, which then also kind of gets, I mean, this is still a good focus without the autonomy decrease, so you still would want to do it. But, like, it bypasses so many focuses makes it so much quicker that I always do this route over this route because of that. And the one thing is with like Unite the Anglosphere, when you unite the Anglosphere, you actually get, if you do either of these paths, you get the decision to either create a pan North American state or install an American monarchy if you go the King's Party. Now, the pan North American state pretty much has Canada annex the United States. Once you annex all of the U.S., you click that decision, it gives Canada all of the U.S. territory, and Canada cores them, which is pretty cool. It's great, and then it's named the North American Dominion. It's really cool. Versus the kingdom of, like, you can install a kingdom where you put the king's wife, Wallis, on the throne of an American monarchy. Also really cool as a puppet. The problem is that the difference is that when you do the Pan North American state and you do the Imperial Federation over here, you core all of Canada's cores, which Canada then cores all of the United States. I'm not sure if it's like Canada and Hawaii, but it's at least continental 48 states. So it automatically makes me never want, like, there's an achievement for the American monarchy, so I've done it, but that was the only time I did it. Every other time I always do the Pan North American state. It's much stronger. The thing though is there is a slight break because we'll continue talking. There's the decision to move to secure the dominions, which it's convoluted because you have to have a certain amount of divisions in certain areas on all your dominions to click decisions. Honestly, it's easier just to let them all break away, in my opinion, not have to deal with it, because you can just annex them through that civil war. I guess you would call it an exploit, which just makes this focus kind of useless. But the thing is, as a result of that, when you release Canada as a puppet after you annex the U.S., the problem is that they'll break, and then you click the Pan North American decision, they'll eventually break away from you, so you have to go to war with them again, which really isn't that big a deal because you still keep like you'll still have like Bermuda and stuff, so you can easily naval invade into Canada, and because you just released them, even if they have cores on Canada and the U.S., they don't have time to build up an army, so you can already start invading them very quickly and get a foothold so they can't defense against you, and by the time you're into here, you have a huge army, so it's realistically not that hard. That is the one side that I'd like them to fix, is that puppets, no matter what, will break away from you if you do these ideologies, because they're hard-coded. Like, Canada is hard-coded to break away no matter what. Even if they're fascist, they'll still break away from you. So I'd like it to maybe do an ideology check where, like, if they're the same ideology as you, they don't break away. That would be the little change I would like, because that would make this so much easier, because then you wouldn't have to do the re-invasion, and it just would make it a lot nicer. And it would make a lot more sense that, like, if Canada has a fascist government and you have a fascist government, Canada might want to stay with you a little bit, or at least give you a decision to ensure their loyalty if they have the same ideology as you. Like, I guess you could do move to secure the dominions, then wait, like, when you release them, have the all of it where you need to, so you can do the decisions and stuff. I guess you can do it that way. I've never tried that, if that actually works after you re-release them. But again, like, you'd have to pull up an external wiki, because you have to have these certain amount of troops in certain areas. It's not just have a certain amount of manpower in Canada. It's have a certain amount of manpower in certain states in Canada and a certain amount of division. It's just a hassle. That's why I don't do it. So maybe just simplifying the securing the dominions focus for how you can secure them would fix the whole issue. So, and it would also help out with the communist path, because they have access to it too. So maybe doing that would be nice. Food for thought. Continuing on with the unique focuses to the black shirts, you have the British path to fascism, which removes the war to end all wars, and then gets you 5% stability in war support. Pretty good. You have the secure the Italian alliance, which gets you a, I believe this gets you invites the Italians to join you. They can refuse, but this is pretty much you ally Italy versus ally in Germany. You get enact the Moses Plan, which gives you limited exports, and then you get 2 civs and 2 mills, plus the Mosley Memorandum, which gets you 10% infrastructure construction speed. It's pretty good, because the only thing it does is change you to limited exports, which you can change back. Granted, it does cost some political power, but I believe for the civs, mills, and infrastructure boost, it's well worth it. And depending on how far you're in the game, you might want to be on limited exports anyway, so it's not that big a deal. We already talked about secure the alliance. Then down here you have either preempt the Spanish alignment or Gibraltar for support, where you give Gibraltar and Spain can join you, or you just get a war goal on nationalist Spain. I much prefer the war goal, but you can get Spain as an ally. So I like the option, but I always go with this one. And then you have prevent a colonial hegemony, which gets you a war goal on Germany, which is pretty good. Can't complain. Overall, not a bad little tree. The interesting thing with Mosley is that he gets a same kind of similar to Prince Edward. He has a very bad leader trait of it's the champion of peace, which is pretty much he has like horrible war support and like detriment, like 30% or something. A few other things were like, because he was more of an isolationist, so like declaring war on stuff and conquering everything kind of doesn't fit with how he wanted to run things. So doing these focuses when he's in power will slowly get you more and more war support and stuff. It's to limit you from going to war economy pretty much. But it's not so bad because you can do a lot of these focuses and improve it. And genuinely, I actually do like the path. I think it runs pretty well. I will have to try to see if the Dominion strength does work, because that's the one issue I have had with it before. And if I thought about it, this probably would have worked just fine. And even if not, just getting the 120 political power is still probably pretty nice. So I will try that out next time. But overall, I think it is a very strong tree that it lets you do what you want. And you can get very powerful. Oh, there is one more thing. Well, two more things. One, there's a decision for like a Mosley plan that's pretty decent. Like it's like 120 political power to enact from your decision menu. It's pretty decent, just something there. But the interesting thing that I have to try, that I'm looking forward to, is they've reworked the European Union. And something interesting about Mosley is that you get access to the European Union as a fascist nation. And the UK doesn't get access to the European Union except for under Mosley. So you can unite the Anglosphere, get core. You could already now with how the European Union works, you could get cores on Ireland and the British Isles, but you'll get that through your focus tree, so you don't got to worry about that. But now you can get cores on the United States. So you would be able to get cores on the U.S., Canada, so pretty much all of North America. Cores on South Africa. Cores on Australia. Cores on New Zealand. I believe you don't get cores on Singapore or the British Raj. But now with how the European Union used to be able to also core France, the Benelux, Germany, and Italy. Well, now you can core all of it, so that's going to be all of Europe cored, all of North America cored, South Africa cored, most of Oceania cored. That's going to be nuts. I want to see how fun it is to get a fully cored out European Union Imperial Federation under Mosley. That's going to be a fun playthrough. Maybe I'll have a video of some of the highlights when I get around to doing that, because that's probably going to be a long playthrough, but it sounds like that's going to be a fun one. Moving over to the worst tree, in my opinion, it might be the worst tree any major has, because, well, I don't know, Japan has a pretty bad tree as well, a pretty bad communist tree too. They never catch a break with the communist versions. They never seem to do good versions. Like, the new update to the Hungary communist tree is actually pretty good, so I do have hope if they redo communist trees, they can actually make them decent. But we'll start out with how it works out. You have the concession to the trade union decisions, which lets you, it also gets you 10% stability. This gives you a bunch of decisions that you can use to slowly gain, like you pass different bills and such, like union protections and all that jazz. And it slowly builds up your communism support until you can force the issue. It's an interesting way to go communist, I'm not going to lie. I don't mind that. The problem is, if you do not decolonize within 2 years after becoming communist, a civil war will start. That is a horrible restriction that, well, a civil war is not terrible. As I see, you can use the civil war here to cover up, you can early civil war and use it to your advantage. No matter what, you got to wait 2 years. So even if you do the 35-day and then then the concessions of the trade unions, you still have to go through all these decisions and then wait 2 years. So it's going to be like 1938, late 38, I believe at the earliest, the Civil War would pop, which is just too late for it to, you want to deal with it. And to avoid it, you have to do so many focuses and weaken yourself so much. It just, I hate decolonization trees as communists because it just automatically makes them struggle. And they never give anything at the bottom that's worth the struggle. Because like like even the King's Party, which I think is the weaker of the two, is still very strong. And you lose your dominions and stuff, but you reclaim them, and you can core them. That's the interesting thing with this tree. Like even though you lose your dominions, you can core them very easily, and the U.S. to become even stronger than you were. So like losing your dominions isn't as bad of a deal. And over here, you could straight up just not lose them. Even here, if you don't lose your dominions, you decolonize. So they will be independent. I don't think that if you secure the dominions, they stay when you hit the decolonization focus. So like it makes this almost worthless. It's horrible. Moving down, we have Fate of the Royal Family, which pretty much banishes the royal family, gets you 60 political power. It's not the best. I mean, if you're doing a communist path, it's kind of fun to banish the royal family, but it's not really that good. And you have to wait till you're communist to do this, so you're stuck up here for a long time. Then you have Eliminate the Upper Class, which gets you 60 political power. And then it removes all the aristocrat field marshals, generals, and admirals, which really sucks, because again, this is the kick in the dog while it's down tree. You lose all of your empire, also lose a lot of your good advisors, generals, and everything. It's unnecessary how bad it gets. Then down here you have For the Good of the Revolution, which gets rid of war to end all wars, but then gets you For the Good of the Revolution 15% consumer good factor minus. That's pretty good, but again, you can get rid of war to end all wars in any of these trees pretty easily. I mean, you don't get the minus 15% consumer good, but I don't think that's worth getting rid of all your generals and stuff, let alone losing the empire. Like, I think this focus completely invalidates the bonus of this one without the other detriments that the communist tree brings. Then the communist splits into a few different paths. You got the British Communist Alternative and the Follow Moscow. We'll go with the BCA first. So when you do this, you get rid of the Allies, and it pretty much creates a new faction, the British Communist Alternative, and then 5 stability. I believe they've changed these to be 35 days. I'm not sure if they did, but I do like when they do 35 days for joining factions. I don't think those should ever be 70-day focuses, because usually if you're the correct ideology, you can join without it and bypass it, and if not, it's an alliance. It shouldn't take you that damn long. So moving over, you have Enforced Decolonization, which pretty much gives a demand to all the other colonial powers to decolonize, and if not, you get a war goal on them. The problem is that if they say no, you get a war goal. That's cool, but this is still a sucky path. And if they say yes, well, you don't get a war goal on them, and now there's just a billion decolonized nations lagging down the computer. Like, for LARP, maybe, but I don't even know how fun the LARP is to just have everything released. Like, it's kind of fun when you do balkanize the Soviet Union and stuff, but I don't really think it's worth all of the detriments. And then the mutually exclusive with it is Reach Out Across the Channel, which invites France and the Low Countries to our faction if they are communist. That, you can't guarantee that unless you're going into the game rules and having all of them go communist. This is just a terrible focus. You could use it to get a cool faction, but you have to specifically set France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg to go communist. I don't even know if you can set Luxembourg to go communist, but you could set those 3 to go communist for it to matter anything. And then at the end of the day, what are you getting? You're getting the Allies, but communist. It's like Germany on historical is still going to come in and fight all those nations. So is it really going to change anything? No. That's one of the worst problems about some of these trees. It's it's not different. It's just, oh, we're all communists now. It's cool. That doesn't really change much. Then down here you have Soviet cooperation, which I'm not sure what this does. It might just invite fuse the Comintern and the British Communist Alternative, which kind of gets rid of the whole reason that you did this one instead of that one. Like it's just like I don't care, or maybe it's just like a non-aggression. I don't know. I don't really care. It's not a good focus either, no matter what it does. And then you have Spirit of the Revolution, which this you can get it with any of the focuses. It gives you 10% factory output, 10% dockyard output. It's like that's your buff at the end of the tree for ripping everything apart and making everything worse. 10% factory output and dockyard output. It's like great. I ripped everything apart for that and 15% consumer goods. That's it. It's like it's not fun. Why would I want to do that? Over here you can get a war goal in the Soviet Union. It's like cool. You can do that over here. So why does this matter? Liberate the home of Karl Marx. War goal on Germany. Okay, but you get one here on the fascist path. Or you can ally them here. Like, who cares? And you're communist, you can justify war goals. So, like, that's one thing they also, as well, is they're like, oh, here's some war goals at the end of your tree. It's like, well, they don't really matter when I'm communist. I can justify the war goals. Like, those matter. War goals matter more to nations that are not aligned or to democracies because they have a harder time justifying. They require game rules, specific situations to justify on people. So giving them war goals is nice. It's also nice that when they're not really required as part of the tree or just something extra, because then it's usually shorter, like 70 days is usually shorter than how long it takes to justify. So it's just a shorter way to get the war goal. But if you have other focuses you'd rather do, you justify in the background and ignore the focus. So, like, it's nice to have for the AI and for you to save some time, but, like, it is in no way a draw for a tree for war goals when it's a extremist ideology, because it lets you already justify. So I have no care for any of these. Moving over to the Follow Moscow, you join the Soviet Union, you get 5% stability. I'm at least glad they made these 35 days, because I believe these were 70 days. You have over here Socialist Science Pool. You join a research group for 35 days. I don't even know how good research groups are. I think they give you some bonuses or make some text shorter, so like that's cool, but like I'm not dying to get this focus. And then you have two different choices: tackle fascism or tackle capitalism. Tackling fascism gets you a modifier that gets rid of fascism. It gives you an attack bonus against Germany and Italy. That's pretty decent. I'm not going to complain too much about that. And preparing for the second front gets Marine and Transport Model. Not going to complain too much about that. I would like maybe a little bit of like naval experience just so you can build, or maybe some army experience to build Marines, but not going to complain all that much. And you get the war goal on Germany, which is kind of weird because you're going to, I mean, I guess you don't get the war goal unless you do this, which actually that kind of sucks. Tackle fascism doesn't get you any war goals. So you still have to do this focus for the war goals. That's just not fun. That's just not fun. I like the boosts, but I don't care for this. Like, you're ending up at war with Germany and Italy as the United Kingdom. What does that sound like? The historic paths. That sounds like you're just playing a regular or slightly different, like democratic United Kingdom. It's like, oh boy. And you have to deal with all of this stuff. And you're fighting with the Soviet Union. Do you know what the United Kingdom did in World War II? They fought with the Soviet Union against the fascists. Like, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. It's like, it makes it not, I don't care. Like, so far, 3 out of the 4 down line, like, none of these I care for. Moving over to tackle capitalism, it gets rid of your democracy support, which you probably have more as, because you start out as democracy, so that actually might help. You also get a bonus attack against the United States. That's alright. I'm not going to complain too much about that. But again, still no war goal. Just the bonus. But again, you can justify, but like, if I'm getting I'd rather it be here. Then you have Bermuda Invasion Launch Point, Infrastructure Air Base. Like again, this is the same as the Cylon operating base. It literally has the same icon. It does the exact, well, not the exact same thing, but basically one less infrastructure. 70 days. I hate these focuses being 70 days. They should be 35 always. Then you got Crush the Dream, which gets you a puppet war goal against the United States. 70 days for a war goal that you should get here. Now this does have an achievement associated with it, so I have done it once before, but that was it. I'm never touching it again unless they change it, because, oh boy, going to war with the United States, wonder where I've seen that before in a better way. It's like everything this tree does, these trees do better, or these trees do better. This tree does this part better. That's crazy. How does the tree that you basically do none of the focus, you do four damn focuses for, how is it better than this entire tree at doing the same thing? That's insane to me. It makes no sense. Like, there's no uniqueness to this. There's nothing that I want to do. Like, it is, with the whole communist mechanic, it's slow, not which. Well, I could accept that because I think it's an interesting way to flip. It just then it compounds because then it's, you have to get rid of all kinds of good generals and everything else. Like, it's just, and then you have the Civil War if you don't count. Like, it is one of the focus trees that requires the most focuses to do, because you have to do all of these and then all of your path. Like, it's just, I don't understand. I don't understand the thought process behind it. I can't. I don't even know what to do with this, because with the other ones, I don't think they really need much. Just slight tweaks to how the systems work and such would probably make them a little bit better. Just shortening some focuses because they're a little long. But like overall, the structure and the end goal, I like the vision. Even over here, there's just, I would like a little bit more stuff, like maybe focusing on helping government and exiles, or like maybe like a little bit more to do with D-Day and such. But but realistically, there's not much. Like the UK, pretty much, if you're doing this tree, you're just doing a lot of your navy focuses are reinforcing the empire, because the shared tree is very good. Like this part of the shared tree is very good. So like this is kind of light. Here's where you're doing different stuff and making different decisions, so you're more focused on doing these focuses. It makes sense. Over here has some great alternative stuff. Why is this was just tacked on? It had to be. There was no thought put into this. I just don't know what they want me to do. What am I supposed to do? Like, even if they gave like access to like the European Union as the communist tree, kind of like what they do with like the Belgium alternative path over here, where you can go communist and still do a European Union. Like, even doing that, I don't think it would be good. Like, you would first have to get rid of the decolonization stuff, which they're not going to, because this whole thing like tied into where you can't release puppets. Besides, like, you can't release like any of your like starting nations. Besides Egypt, like all of these you can't release. So like they're not gonna they're gonna have to do a total overhaul of entire systems to do anything with this. I don't see them doing that, because everything else is like just needs a little bit of tweaks here and there, a little bit of added stuff, like what they've been doing, like where they added like Vickers and they added expand the Secret Intelligence Service. They just need to keep doing stuff like that, where like they add these focuses here and there, or change lengths of other focuses. I don't know. They're asking too much of me to think about this. I think I'm going to stop before I keep ranting about this, because I'm just going to keep going in circles of how upsetting it makes me. So we're just going to end it here. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Next time, we will not be doing the German Reich. I would like a little bit more time to play a little bit of the paths and the mess around with it. So we'll skip that and save it for the final Great Power. So next time, I believe it will be the Italians that we'll be seeing. I'm not sure off the top of my head, because we're going in the list order. But we'll be saving Germany for last. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.